Have you ever stopped to wonder why we think about art the way we do? Why we value a painting for its sheer beauty or a poem for the way it just hits you emotionally? Well, it turns out the entire operating system for our modern ideas about art, it was pretty much written during this amazing philosophical revolution back in 18th century Germany. So let's go ahead and take a look at that source code.
It all boils down to this one huge question. What is art actually for? For thousands of years, philosophers have been wrestling with this. Is it a tool for teaching us things? Is it a moral guide? Or is it something else entirely? The answer to this question was about to get a major update.
For a long time, the debate was totally dominated by these two heavyweights. You had Plato, who was super suspicious of art. He basically called it a copy of a copy, like twice removed from anything real or true. But then his student, Aristotle, came along and said, hang on, art is a fantastic teacher. He argued that things like poetry could give us universal truths in a way that's actually easy to understand, making it an amazing tool for moral education. And for centuries, that was pretty much the final word. Art's main job was to teach you something. But then, right around the early 18th century, the ground starts to shift. Philosophers began to ask, wait a minute, is art really just a textbook with pretty pictures? Or could its real value be in the experience itself, in the sensation? Okay, so the big thinker on campus at the time was this guy, Christian Wolff. For him, the world was this perfectly ordered, logical system, a harmony of a manifold. And pleasure, well, he defined pleasure as just our brain's sensory. And because it's sensory, it's kind of confused perception of all that perfection. So looking at a beautiful painting was just a fuzzy but nice way of understanding the truth and order of the universe. It wasn't the best way to get knowledge, but hey, it was pleasant. But this super rational, super cognitive view of art was about to get a serious challenge from one of Wolff's own intellectual descendants, a young philosopher who was about to give this whole field of study a new name and a totally new direction. And that guy was Alexander Baumgarten. In 1735, he's the one who coins the term aesthetics. Now, what's so revolutionary here is this subtle but mind-blowing shift. He said beauty isn't just about us perceiving the perfection in an object. No. He said beauty is the perfection of our sensible cognition itself. The focus totally shifts from the thing out there to the rich, complex, and powerful experience happening right here, inside our own minds. That is a game changer. And this new idea, as you can imagine, immediately kicked off a huge debate. If art is all about perfecting our sensory experience, then what do we do with imagination? The wild, untamed, make-believe stuff. What role does that have to play? And this debate basically split into two camps. On one side, you had Johann Christoph Gottsched, a real loyalist to the old way of thinking. He insisted that poetry has to be a rational imitation of nature. Fables, he said, have to be probable. They have to follow the rules. But on the other side, you had these Swiss critics, Bodmer and Breitinger, who were arguing for freedom. They believed that novelty and free, untamed imagination were actually incredible sources of aesthetic pleasure. So they pointed to authors who completely broke the rules. Think about the supernatural drama of Milton's Paradise Lost, or the insane magical world of Shakespeare's The Tempest. They argued that these highly imaginative stories were actually better at teaching you a moral lesson, precisely because their wildness and novelty grabs your attention and makes the ideas feel alive in a way that a boring, probable story never could. So this focus on imagination and pleasure was really pushing the whole conversation inward. And our next philosopher, a guy named Moses Mendelssohn, is going to take that idea and run with it, locating the value of art even more firmly inside the viewer's own mind. Mendelssohn was totally fascinated by this paradox that we all know. Why do we enjoy tragic plays or sad songs? How is it even possible that we get pleasure from watching or hearing about something painful? He called this whole experience mixed emotions. And his answer is so brilliant. Mendelssohn argued that the pleasure doesn't actually come from the tragic thing itself. It comes from the activity of our own minds, the act of perceiving, thinking, feeling, and making sense of it all. It's like even when the subject is sad, the mental workout it gives us is inherently enjoyable. He even built a whole model around this. He said our pleasure comes from 4 different sources all at once. First, the perfection you see in the object itself. Second, that enjoyable activity of your own mind. Third, the pleasant physical response that your mental activity creates. And fourth, our admiration for the incredible skill of the artist who made it. It's this rich, layered experience.
And here's the secret to how it all works. Mendelssohn said we have this inner consciousness that we have an imitation and nothing genuine in front of us. That psychological distance, that little voice in your head that says, it's only a movie, that's what dials down the disgust or the pain just enough so that we can appreciate the whole mental experience without being totally overwhelmed. Okay, so now let's put these ideas to the test with one of the most famous art debates of the entire century. And it all centered around this one incredibly powerful statue, the Laocoon. So, the art historian Johann Winkelmann looked at this statue of a priest in agonizing pain, and he saw the noble soul of the ancient Greeks. He argued that Laocoon isn't screaming because a noble Greek would restrain his pain. But then, the critic Gotthold Lessing comes along with this revolutionary counterargument. He says it has nothing to do with the Greek soul and everything to do with the limits of sculpture itself. Lessing made this really foundational distinction that changed art criticism forever. He said some arts, like painting and sculpture, exist in space. They capture a single, frozen moment in time. But other arts, like poetry and music, exist in time. They show actions unfolding through a sequence. And that simple idea, it changes everything. So, back to the big question, why doesn't Laocoon scream? Lessing's answer is pure genius, because a statue can only show one moment. A full-on scream, frozen in marble, would just be ugly. But more importantly, it's the peak of the action. It leaves nothing for our imagination to do. The story's over. But a sigh is pregnant with the past and the future. It forces us to imagine the scream that came before and the death that's about to come. It's a choice made purely to engage the viewer's mind. And all of this, the focus on our own experience, on feeling, on the free play of our imagination, it all led to this profound moment where art was finally liberated. You can really see the whole journey right here. It starts with Wolff, where art is just a kind of fuzzy version of truth. Then, Mendelssohn comes in and centers it on feeling and the activity happening inside our own heads. And finally, with Lessing, we get art as a form of free play, an experience that works within the rules of its medium, just to spark our imagination. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that art no longer had to justify its own existence. It didn't need the excuse of being a tool for teaching morality or scientific truth. Its value was now found in the unique, powerful, and pleasurable human experience it provided, all on its own. Which brings this whole thing right back to you. The next time you're standing in front of a painting or listening to a piece of music, just think about it. What are you looking for? Are you looking for a hidden truth? Are you just enjoying the activity of your own feelings? Or are you engaged in a kind of imaginative play? This 18th century debate, it turns out, is still happening inside all of us.